Well, welcome back, folks, for the talk of the afternoon. And Ciaran is going to give us an ARISS update for the last 2 years and 40 years of amateur radio on human spaceflight. Ciaran, over to you.
Green now. Okay, so hopefully this will just be an update from where we were last year. If you remember, we were sitting here last year with cars and trailers full of kit ready to go down to Broadstairs and to deal with the contact at Matthew Payne's school, and I'll come to that in a minute. But main thing is amateur radio and human space flights. Just so everybody knows, we've had the space shuttle, we've had the Mir, and now we've got the ISS. And there's 40 years worth of history there now with human space flight. And that was a big thing that we wanted to celebrate this year. And I'll come on to that and show you some of the stuff that we got up to. Couple of worldwide ARISS successes for you as well. First one being the 40th celebration. We got everybody together in Florida at the Kennedy Space Center and had an international meeting first of all, and then a conference where we had a number of astronauts come along and tell us about their views and their history and their experiences of amateur radio usage itself, including some very interesting ones of debates that went on between fathers and daughters about dogs and pet dogs being purchased as a consequence of their dad doing a flight on the space station. We've continued to make educational contacts around the world, and as you can see, there's still quite an impressive number, over 1,660 individual contacts now made since we first went live on the ISS. And 2024 is turning out to be quite a busy year for us. We've had 79 contacts so far, and that includes Super Saturday, which was last week, where we had 3 contacts in 4 orbits, and Super Friday, which was yesterday, where again we had 3 contacts on 2 continents in the space of 3 or 4 orbits, I think it was. The ham TV transmitter has been returned to the ISS, which is a great advancement. We're now just waiting for installation and commissioning of the ham TV itself, and that'll bring back the very beneficial thing that we had of being able to see the astronaut and asking him or her to give us a wave during the contact itself. As you've probably heard, the SSTV equipment has been renewed and flown to the space station as well, and that is now in progress of experimentation at the moment, and I think it goes on till Monday or Tuesday. And already we've been having some great reports around the world of the reception that's been carried out and the successful use of the new SSTV equipment. And finally, we've continued with the private astronaut flights on Axiom, and we've had 2 successful flights on Axiom 2 and Axiom 3, and we've got Axiom 4 coming up sometime early in the next year as well. As always, we get judged by the numbers. This is just a splash. You can see we've got most of the US covered, and we've got 75 countries, including Antarctica, now covered in the UK, sorry, in the world for contacts that have taken place. One that I do want to point out is that because we're all volunteers, we've estimated that there's about $5 million worth of in-kind support carried out each year by the volunteers of ARISS. And when you see the contacts that go on, you can understand there's quite a lot of effort involved with that. Back last year, I showed you this chart showing the breakdown of participation and the total figure of just shy of 185,000 impressions or people reached for ARISS contacts. We've had that updated this year to include 2023, and as you can see, we're just shy of 210,000 people being reached by these contacts. And that's just showing what's happening year on year, and that the number of people we are contacting and reaching with the ARISS contacts is increasing itself. And 2024 is turning out to be another good year itself. You can see some of the numbers up there. We've still got another quarter to go, but we've got quite a number of contacts left to go around the world in 2024. So, to UK successes, as I said, last year we were waiting for going down to Broadstairs to go to St Peter's in Thanet Primary School. That turned out to be an extremely popular and successful contact itself, and Matthew will be able to attest to that itself. We've had the Mrs Ethelstone's Academy in Axminster, which was another direct contact, which I'll come on to shortly. We've had the Eric Knows charity or community interest company, which was a telebridge, and we've had last weekend the Girl Guiding in Surrey. So St Peter's in Thanet had their connection or their contact on the 18th of October last year. John and I arrived on site on the Monday following the colloquium, and got everything set up. Had quite a lot of interactive sessions with the students at the school there, who had already been prepped quite nicely and quite informatively by John Hislop and Matthew themselves. And as I said, there was a real buzz at the school itself. For this contact, we actually had Megan Christian, who is the ESA reserve astronaut in the new intake of astronauts for ESA itself. She came along and was able to answer questions that we didn't get asked, but also to answer questions from the children themselves. As you can see, we had lots and lots of interaction with the students and their parents as well, because the antenna was placed right in the middle of their playground, and John's Jeep, which you can just about see there, got even more interest as well in terms of the size of it and the noise that it made. But I think the picture that for me makes that contact really special is the one of Isabella, and the expression on her face whenever the audio first came through from the space station. And that sort of sums up the reaction of the kids. There was sort of sheer delight, sheer enjoyment of what was doing and what was going on. We then moved on to Mrs Ethelstone's primary academy in Axminster, or the Acorn Academy in Axminster. This was another one that was a direct and happened on the 17th of April. The school actually returned from their Easter holidays on the Tuesday, on the 16th of April, and we were there on site actually getting set up while the kids were trying to get back into classes. Again, that was a very successful one, and you can see the delight in the faces of the students themselves. We then went on to Eric Knows charity, or the community interest company. This was a telebridge, so something that we don't normally carry out. We prefer to do the direct contacts in the UK because of the impact and the impression that it makes with the children. But we carried out the telebridge. I was actually in York, having had my first grandson born a few days earlier. And we had the UK Space Agency also joining us. Eric Knows was or is a charity for neurodiverse children, and it provides a lot of support for adults who've got children with neurodiversity. And one of the things we were able to do was get hold of somebody from the UK Space Agency who is neurodiverse, and we got him to talk to the students as well about careers in the space industry and how to work the neurodiverse characteristics into a successful job application itself. That then turned to last Saturday, the Girl Guiding in Surrey West. Another direct contact, one that we spent a couple of days setting up at the Brooklands Museum in Surrey. Focused primarily on the girls and the young women of the Girl Guiding Institute. And we managed to get Sunita Williams as the astronaut, so trying to keep an all-female theme with the contact itself. It was high profile for us because we had the Duchess of Edinburgh in attendance at the contact, and she made a greeting message to the astronauts and also asked one of the questions. And speaking to her afterwards, she commented that she had so many other questions that there just wasn't enough time to ask them. Again, Megan joined us for the contact itself and took part in a very lively Q&A session with the girls. And the contact itself did have its own moments. We had a very late notification, something like about 36 hours beforehand, of a change of time. So we were actually on site. We had got most things set up. And then at roughly midnight, a day and a bit before the contact, I got notification that NASA wanted to change the time of the contact itself. So we had to make some hastily rearrangements. But all in all, it was a very successful contact. And looking at the social media hits and impressions that are done for ARISS International just on its own, normally we have about 2,000 to 3,000 such hits per contact, but with this contact, with the mention of ARISS International, we got something like 180,000 different contacts, different impressions being made. The day was purely towards the girls themselves. They had an awful lot of activities carried out as well as the contact itself. And I heard a quote this morning from one of the RSGB staff who was present, who said that one girl at the very beginning sort of questioned why she was there, in the sense of why are we here, because this is all boys stuff. Come the end of the day, she was asked again, how did she enjoy it? And she says it's absolutely fantastic. She thoroughly enjoyed it, and why shouldn't the girls have so much fun in the contact and in the STEM type activities? The girls were very enthusiastic. The question and answer session went through really well, and Megan, who took part in it, really came through with some really good answers as well. And that's Megan herself just answering some of the questions. I mentioned last year we're still on the lookout for ARISS contacts in the United Kingdom, and I do have a document that can be sent to you by email if you're interested in pursuing an ARISS contact, to give you lots of details in terms of what to expect, what to do, what learning resources are available itself. And my email address is just there, so please feel free to email me, and I'll send you a copy of it. But perhaps the main thing that has happened this year is the 40th celebration. So back in 1983, on STS-9, it was Owen Garriott first took some amateur radio equipment up with him to experiment in his spare time, and it was made clear that he wasn't allowed to do this in program time or anything. It had to be his own downtime. But he ignited an enthusiastic response from amateurs on the ground that has helped sustain amateur radio on human spaceflight for the last 40 years. And what we had was a bit of a celebration. We met up at Kennedy Space Center in Florida and had a wonderful couple of days doing first of all a face-to-face meeting and then sorry, the words just escaped me. A conference for the actual event itself. Like I said, Owen Garriott made the first contact in space on STS-9. His son Richard was there as well and gave us quite a detailed overview of what it was like to be a child in a family where the father was in space, both for the Skylab missions and for the STS-9 missions themselves. But we've managed to find a recording of the very first contact that he did. Oops. Let's see if I can get this to work. No, it's not going to work. Sorry, I'll dig it out later. And if you're interested, there is a recording of the very first contact that was made itself. The bulk of the meeting took place on the first couple of days of it, where we had an international face-to-face meeting. More than 50 delegates and attendees joined us at Kennedy Space Center and took part in some of the discussions. Frank Bauer mentioned the chair of ARISS International mentioned that he considered it to be a historic meeting itself because it represented 24 years of ARISS operations, 30 years of planning for amateur radio on the International Space Station, and 40 years of actual operations with the shuttle, the Mir, and the ISS itself. Frank liked to emphasize the fact that ARISS is an international body, and international actually forms our middle name, or part of our middle name, and was very proud of the impact that the program has had throughout the world and for the amount of worldwide support that is given to it. The focus of the meeting was primarily on the strategic directions for 2024, and these haven't changed much since 2023. There's still the improve, the expand, and the reduce focus that Frank wanted, but the additional part was to celebrate the 40th anniversary. But he started out first of all by remembering how ARISS came about. And I've talked of the shuttle, the Mir, and the shuttle and the Mir experiments that went on, and they were carried out by a number of different groups around the world. But NASA, in the form of Pam Mountjoy, challenged the amateur radio community back in the early 90s to come together as one voice and provide the amateur radio facilities on the International Space Station. Pam was an educator at NASA who very much believed in outreach and pursued outreach activities quite heavily, and was very surprised when initially she thought, and her colleagues in NASA thought, that the worldwide amateur radio community couldn't come together enough to make an organization, actually came up with the what became ARISS, and the rest essentially of that is history. We then talked a little bit about the engineering update. The bulk of it was to do with ARISS, the amateur radio exploration of the lunar surface and the lunar orbits. And this is the halfway house to getting to Mars, which we're looking towards. And we focused a lot on operations both on the moon itself and on the gateway, the lunar gateway that's proposed as well. A major part of the discussion involved the frequency coordination that had to go on because of it. Because the ITU rules don't apply on the moon or in lunar orbit, there's a working group that pulled together the frequency requirements of all the different bodies, but also the desire to keep certain parts of the moon quiet itself. And there's something called the quiet side of the moon, and the lunar gateway, we find out, actually progresses around that particular area of the moon, and that limits the different frequencies that we're allowed to use, both up and down itself. So we had quite a significant discussion on what frequencies we could use and what we couldn't use themselves. We also had an update on ham TV. I've mentioned that it's already gone back up to the International Space Station. The system has gone up now with a new 8-pole filter between it and the antenna, and that has been a requirement of NASA because of new frequency spectrum coordination requirements actually on the space station itself. We also talked a little bit about the digital communicator, which Phil Crump from BATC had presented last year at the colloquium, and looking as a potential successor to some of the radio equipment that we've got, stroke maybe even for use on the lunar surface and the gateway themselves. Associated with that, there was the question of antennas. And if you're interested, I've got some photos which I can show you later on, which show the design of an antenna hat, which is made up of a number of patch antennas, which is designed to go onto the lunar gateway. And one of the patches will be facing the Earth at nearly all times, hopefully. And then the last thing that we were talking about was the potential for remote controlling the D710 in Columbus. This is something that we've had as a desire for quite a long time, and one of the attendees, Chris Thompson, G0 something LK, I can't remember it, sorry, who lives over in the States now and in Canada, has come up with a mechanism of being able to control the D710 through the use of PACSAT communication protocol. And Chris was able to demonstrate switching the D710 between the voice repeater and between SSTV activities, uploading pictures on SSTV, scheduling different SSTV transmissions, and has developed something that is potentially really groundbreaking for us, because it starts to remove the need to have the astronauts involved with reprogramming or repurposing the radio into different modes. We also had the opportunity to have a look around the KSC Space Center site itself, and we were given a special tour of something called, it's listed as the International Space Station Processing Facility, but it's now actually called the International Space Systems Processing Facility. But it's basically the large rooms where they prepare all the spacecraft and everything else for space flight itself. And it's a room that is big enough to actually fit the whole of the International Space Station into at any one time. And that was really special. We had also another visit out to Launch Complex 39, both A and B, where all of the Apollo and all of the shuttle missions have taken place or have launched from. And we got a very close-up view of it indeed, and it was really special. And none of us realized that there was actually a monument or a monument to all of the flights that have taken place. And SpaceX now fly from Launch Complex 39 as well. So on to the anniversary conference itself. We had our guest speaker was Richard Garriott, and as I said, he recounted a lot of the time when he was a child, when his father Owen was on the Skylab space mission or on STS-9, and had brought along quite a lot of updates in terms of and memorabilia for the contact itself, including the radios that he used and some recently discovered tapes of the actual contacts taking place from space. And one of the things Richard was wanting to do was get those digitized and made available so that everybody could go through them and potentially listen to see if their calls were registered in 1983. He also talked a little bit about his own space flight experiences and the contacts that he made in around the world when he was on the space station. And one of the things that was really nice was his acknowledgement that the contact that we did at Budbrook in Warwick in 2008 was one of his favourites because it was one of the most well documented contacts that he had actually seen at that point in time. And that was an opportunity I had to meet up with him again and chat with him. But he went through some of the trials and tribulations of getting to space, the numbers of times that he had booked tickets onto space flights or had founded companies specifically designed to take people up to space, and also recounted some of the things that he set himself through, such as major surgery, in order to pass the medicals just to be able to fly on the Soyuz when he did. So the conference itself continued with the journey to space. So Frank and a panel of people went through the history of how the first amateur radio was actually allowed onto a human space flight vehicle, and was able to demonstrate and to produce some of the original documentation that went back and forth. And it's quite interesting to learn that Owen Garriott actually tried really hard to get it onto Skylab as well, but was unsuccessful. And it was only whenever he was assigned to STS-9 that the idea became a reality in getting equipment onto the space shuttle itself. A lot of time was talked about SAREX, SAFEX and MIREX. SAREX is the Space Amateur Radio Experiment, or the Shuttle Amateur Radio Experiment. SAFEX was the equivalent carried out by the German DLR space agency with the Skylab, not Skylab, sorry, with the... Yes, I think it was No, it wasn't Skylab. It was another laboratory that flew in Columbus. And MIREX, of course, was the amateur radio experiment on the Mir space station. And that developed into a discussion of the usefulness of amateur radio itself. And a lot was talked about the use of EMCOM, or emergency communications, when the Soyuz vehicle, or the Progress vehicle, sorry, crashed into the Mir space station, and how much it was the amateur radio equipment was used. a little bit of a legacy, because we carry on the emergency communications role now with ARISS, and have stations around the world ready to react to mission control whenever they request assistance. We discussed a lot about STEM and STEAM outreach and the importance of it itself, and the NASA opportunities that we have to practice STEM and STEAM outreach, especially on the Artemis missions themselves, which are the next stage of space flight that we're looking forward to. And any celebration can't go on, or any meeting of people who are celebrating an historic thing such as 40 years of amateur radio and space flight couldn't go by without having a special gala dinner. And this was held this time at Kennedy Space Center underneath one of the last remaining Saturn V rockets, which was impressive. If you've never seen it, or if you've never been to Florida, to KSC itself, it's well worth a visit. The rocket itself is absolutely enormous, and we had the people that dress up in Star Wars outfits all come along and greet us whenever we first arrived at the gala dinner itself. But there was one special moment in the gala dinner, and that was when Lou McFadden, W5DID, was awarded a special prize, or a special recognition for all the work that he's carried out for ARISS over the last 40 or so years. Lou's had a very long and distinguished career in NASA, working on the Apollo missions and on the space shuttle missions themselves, and has had a hand in just about any and every piece of radio equipment that's gone up there to support amateur radio. The final day of the conference itself sort of focused on the transition from SAREX, SAFEX and MIREX, which had a very different mode of operation. The SAREX missions were always done, and the contacts that were carried out in SAREX were always done on the basis of mission elapsed time, which was always a challenge, especially whenever the shuttle got delayed in its launching itself. And talking about the transition from mission elapsed times, when it was sometimes unpredictable as to when the contact would happen, to the more regularized pattern that we have now with ARISS, where the contact is actually planned for a date and time itself. Shin Atwa from Kenwood JVC, who was the designer and developer of the D710, was also there, and he gave us an intriguing history of Kenwood radios in space, and also shared a little bit about the developments that took place to develop the new IORS, the interoperable radio system, most of which took place whenever we had our international meeting in 2016 in Houston. And Shin was working through the night to send stuff back to Japan for them to test things, for them to send it back to Shin itself, and the result was the new radio system, which gives us the extra power for contacts. As I said, the ham TV was discussed as well, and I took part in a panel session where we discussed the use of ham TV and how much it enhanced a school contact. And we were looking forward to actually getting ham TV back up onto the station so that the contacts could resume. And there was then a a review of educational experiences. So a number of teachers, and just out of interest, are there any teachers or lecturers here today? No, okay. About their experiences of carrying out ARISS contacts themselves, and how much they engaged and enthused the students themselves. And the whole event sort of wound up with a special link up with the ISS, with Laurel O'Hara, and she was able to ask, or we were able to ask a number of questions of her and get a contact in the books for that particular one. We also had some of the international mentors who look after the schools and look after the contacts take part in a panel session as well, where we recounted the efforts that have taken place over the last 23 years themselves. And the graphic you can see on the left is something that we developed during the course of the conference itself, but each little dot is a contact that has happened around the world since November 2000, when operations first started on the ISS themselves. And as you can see, we've got the lone one on Antarctica, which concluded the activation of just about every continent in the world for an ARISS contact. And then we concluded the whole event with a review of pioneering activities that amateur radio has actually been involved in, from the likes of SuitSat, which was the space suit that was thrown out the door itself and attracted much attention, which has then gone on to develop the deployment of small CubeSats from the space station as well, to talking with families and friends over the radio, to now seeing other parties in the space agencies do similar sort of activities themselves. And we rounded off with a look in terms of what amateur radio would look like on the Artemis missions themselves, and how we would fit into the Artemis program. And a lot of interesting discussions were taking place with a number of NASA folk who were there. So that's a bit of a whirlwind sort of run through everything that we've done. But all in all, it's been a really busy year. 4 contacts from the UK is pretty much unexpected, but something that developed itself. We were really glad we had we started off with the Broadstairs contact itself, and that set the scene for Axminster, and then the Girl Guides, and the special one with Eric Knows. We have one more contact coming up, which is again another telebridge, and that is in a couple of weeks' time. And hopefully next year I'll be able to report on how that goes itself. But other than that, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Ciaran. Any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Ciaran. Any thoughts about changing or adding to the FM repeat or FM amateur radio style of equipment to SSB linear type of stuff, which opens up a lot more bandwidth? That's the first thing. And the other thing is, did you eat astronaut food at the gala dinner? Because that would have been quite appropriate, wouldn't it?
I've got a picture. I've got to show you this. So let me find the picture. Where have I put it? No, I'm not going to find it. Answering the food question, no, we didn't have astronaut food, but it was very much astronaut themed, and the butter that came out with the bread rolls at the start of it was shaped in the form of a shuttle. So we can claim a little bit. In terms of the bigger bandwidth, I don't believe that we're looking at anything extra on the ISS at the moment other than the FM. But when we move to the lunar gateway and the lunar surface themselves, we're certainly looking at other modes and other types of equipment. Most of it will be SDR based equipment, which gives us the flexibility to change whatever modulation type we want to use. But there's talk of FT8 or FT4 or FT8, looking at SSB as well, side of things, potentially FM as well. But it opens up the sort of that level of detail hasn't been decided yet, but it has opened up the discussion in terms of what we can do and what's possible.
Any other questions?
Thank you. I was just thinking about good old Mir days, and when there was a camera pointing at the window transmitting SSS TV images. Now they're all the same. They just come in batches from time to time. Is there no plans to have a camera again pointing at the window? I understand that inside there is privacy questions with the astronauts, and I respect that, but not at the window. Thank you.
Most of the SSTV campaigns are going to be done on the basis of pre-prepared slides themselves. We do have an SSTV camera up there on the station, which we're hoping we can reactivate and let the astronauts take different pictures and then transmit them themselves. But for now, we're sort of staying with the pre-formatted ones. And getting itself. To do anything different needs a computing facility for the ARISS station, and we haven't got that yet. But we're hoping to develop something like a Raspberry Pi solution, which does have cameras available to it, or even the ham TV system. Where we could capture pictures and use that either for ham TV transmission or for SSTV work itself.
I mean, even an astronaut with their iPhone transmitting it, sportably from PD120 into the microphone.
Yes, it would, but
I know there are pros.
yeah, but we hit the good old problem of astronaut time and scheduling that time to be able to do that. At the moment, we've been pretty successful in getting astronauts just to as they go past the crossband repeater at the moment, just pick up the mic and start talking, and that's been very successful. But getting them to do anything else over and above that is a pretty tough job at the minute.
Any more questions? Okay. Well, that closes proceedings for today, but we've got another day tomorrow. Just a couple of housekeeping things. One, for those attending the dinner, it is 7:30, and the restaurant have asked us to be in the bar at 6:45. I'm looking around here and thinking that's not going to be a problem for some of us. If you give us a few minutes to rearrange the room, we will have the AMSAT-UK AGM.